I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed. Michael Jordan. There's a version of you that's willing to try things new. You've taken chances. You've gotten into things you weren't fully ready for. You've missed. You've adjusted. You figured it out and you kept moving. So it's not like you don't know how to handle things not going your way. But it's not the outcome that's slowing you down. It's the moment right before it. That pause where you start thinking about how it's going to look, who's going to notice, what it's going to say about you if it doesn't go well. You don't call it fear. You give it some prettier name. You tell yourself you're preparing more. You're tightening things up. You're waiting until it's better, more complete, more solid. But if you're honest, what you're waiting on is certainty that you won't look foolish or unprepared. So now it's not about whether you can handle failure. It's about whether you can handle being seen failing. And those aren't the same thing. And if you've been hesitating lately, not starting something, not sharing, not stepping forward when you know you probably should, it might not be failure you're avoiding. It might be the audience. But on the other hand, let's be real. Nobody enjoys coming up short. However, if you step back for a second, it's not really that serious. Because you've also failed before. You've made bad choices. You've missed opportunities. I'm sure you've said the wrong thing. You took a shot that didn't hit the target. And you know what? So has everyone else around you. The other thing is, you didn't fold. You adjusted. You kept going. Yeah, maybe it bothered you. Maybe it stuck with you for a bit. But it didn't stop you from moving forward again. In the grand scheme, though, it's not the actual failure or the stumble that hangs you up. It's the visibility. Failing in a way that feels like it's on display, where other people can see it. They can judge it or they can judge you. Or worse, maybe you now think that's how they'll identify you. And that's where things get uncomfortable. Because when you start hesitating, not because of the potential outcome, but because you can get wrapped up in that scenario playing in your mind of how it's going to look. That thought of, what if this doesn't go well? What's everyone going to think? Is this going to make me look like I don't know what I'm doing? So then it's not failure you're dealing with. It's the feeling of failure. Remember, failure is an event. It happens. You deal with it and you move on. But being seen failing or not quite succeeding, that feels like it says something about you and your character. However, if you follow that a step further, something else starts to show up. Let's call it the delay. Not the obvious kind where nothing's happening, but that stretch of time where things just don't move quickly. And you're the cause of the delay. Now, on the other hand, it actually sounds reasonable when you explain it. Probably more to yourself than to those around you. But you'll say things like, I want to be prepared. It's not quite where I want it yet. Which can be true, but not always. Sometimes the delay isn't about getting better. It's more likely about affording you some distance from the moment where something could go wrong in front of people. Because as long as it's not out there yet, it can't be judged. As long as you're still working on it, there's no outcome attached to you. So then your timeline stretches. Not dramatically, just enough to feel justified. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Because if you look at it honestly, there are times when what you're calling preparation is actually protection. You're protecting how it's going to come across. You're protecting how you're going to be seen. You're protecting yourself from having to take responsibility for something that might not be received the way you want it to. And again, it's not that you're doing nothing. You're just not stepping to the point where it becomes real, where it can succeed or fail in a way that people can see. And if that moment keeps getting pushed out just a little further than it needs to, it's worth asking whether you're refining the work or managing the risk of what it says about you. And this is where it usually gets misread. You look at your effort and think, well, I'm doing the work. And to some extent you are. You're putting in time. You're thinking it through. You're not avoiding hard things in general. But there's a difference between doing hard things and doing hard things where you can be seen at not being great at them yet. That's the line most people don't notice they've drawn. Because giving your effort feels like progress. It checks the box. It gives you a sense that you're moving forward. But effort done in private, where everything is still controlled, that's a very different environment than stepping into something where the outcome isn't guaranteed and has to be managed or adjusted, where it's unfinished, where it might be criticized, where someone else is able to see you in that moment. And if you pay attention, you'll start to see a pattern. You only take on things where you know you can perform well. You stay in lanes where your skill is already proven. You work behind the scenes until you feel safe enough to step forward. That's not a lack of effort. That's a selective exposure. You're choosing where you're willing to be seen. But the part that matters the most is, there's nothing wrong with wanting to do well. However, if every move you make is filtered through the thought process of, how does this make me look? You'll start avoiding the exact situations that would actually make you better and grow. Because growth doesn't wait until you're ready to be seen. It shows up before that. It shows up when you're still figuring it out, when it's not perfect, when you don't have full control over how it's going to be received. But what's important to understand is there's a tension sitting underneath all of that. It's not that you're not lacking drive. You tell yourself you want to move forward. You want to get better. You don't sit around hoping things just work out. There's a standard that you hold yourself to, whether you say it out loud or not. But at the same time, there's another pull. You don't want to look like you're incapable. You don't want to be the one who doesn't appear to have it all together. You don't want to be misread, underestimated, or seen in a way that doesn't match how you see yourself. So now you've got two systems running at the same time, ambition and protection, and they don't move at the same pace. Ambition pushes you towards situations where you're going to be challenged, where you're going to be learning without the guardrails, where you'll be adjusting and figuring things out as you go. Protection, on the other hand, pulls you back. It pulls you back towards what's controlled, what's familiar, what keeps your image intact. And if you're not aware of it, protection usually wins because it's tricking you into feeling like it's responsible. It tells you you want to be more prepared, to clean it up before you step forward. It actually seems like discipline, but it's not always discipline. Sometimes it's just the way of avoiding the moment where you might not match your own expectations in front of other people. And that's the spot most people live in without realizing it. Stuck because they're wanting to grow, all without letting themselves be seen while they're growing. And those two things don't really work together. So then when you pull it all together, it starts to look a little different. Probably more different than what you probably told yourself at the beginning. It's not that you won't take a loss. It's not that you can't handle things not going your way. You've already proven that you can. But there are moments right now, things that are sitting in front of you, where the hesitation isn't about the outcome. It's about what that outcome might look like if other people are watching when you fall down. And that's where it gets awkward on the inside. No one's calling you out on it. Actually, from the outside, it can look like you're holding a standard. But in the back of your mind, you know where you've paused. You know where you've held something back just a little longer than you needed to. You know where you've chosen what keeps things on an even keel instead of one that maybe exposes you. And maybe nothing happens because of that. Maybe everything stays fine. But fine, it has a way of becoming familiar. And familiar has a way of becoming permanent. So whatever that thing is for you right now, where you feel a little exposed, a little too visible, that's probably closer to the direction you need to be pushing yourself, not avoiding it. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes with me. Until next time, stay sharp, stay grounded, and keep showing up.